Call agents, this is Agent Edwardson, and welcome back to Agent Werefics. Today we are reading, well, actually we'll get to that point. So this one's actually an actual fiction, just so you guys know. So now, without further ado, before I get to that, so we have a prologue in a chapter 1, and that's all I'm allowed to read. Because I'm actually in the actual project. It's still a work in progress story, so, and yes, I get full rights to it. Well, not full rights, you know what I mean. So, let's read Goddesses. Once upon a time, there were 3 goddesses. Oh goodness, I forgot to ask him how to pronounce these. I'm gonna have very big issues with this one. Archia, Eureka, and Pokemon. I'm sorry, I couldn't help it. And Procariatio. Hold on, give me a quick second. Okay, so might as well restart. Once upon a time, there were 3 goddesses: Arakaha, Yukariha, and Procryoshiha. Arahiraha. Oh wait, hold on. Arkiha was the goddess of land and plentiful fruit. Yukariha was the goddess of life and of all living thing, and all living creatures. And Procryoshiha, I hope that's actually how that's supposed to go. Procryoshiha. I'm trying to keep this in my face. Yeah, Procryoshiha. I hope that's definitely how it is. Was the goddess of renewal and the destruction of non-living things. Together, these sisters. Together these sister goddesses made our world and everything within it. The light that touches your skin upon stepping outdoors is from the sun made of Arkaha. The very skin you live within and lungs you breathe with were invented by Yukariha. And all things were renewed and risen up over time by Procryoshiha. That is your world, your life, but you aren't here. This is a story from far into your world's future. Okay, so now we're going into chapter 1, everyone. Ramsel was a kite. Not like the kite you'd connect to a string and float through the sky. Ramsel was a bird of prey. He flew through the skies with no strings attached, but instead of having a knife in one claw and a satchel hanging around him, instead of having a knife in one claw and a satchel hanging around, okay. He flew through the skies with no string attached, but instead having a knife in one claw and a satchel hanging around him. In the satchel was a single letter, written with black ink and addressed to a lever. The knife was simply there for survival purposes. Large hawks would fly by in groups of 3 or more, ready to unleash their strength on those least expecting it. Not all hawks were bad, as those stated, but most were part of the large group of predator Ivian. The Jakunataka, an organization of gang hawks from Kita Barsho, the land of the north. They normally didn't carry weapons with them, as their claws are brute, and brute strength would be enough to take down most unexpected prey. Can I just mention really quick that I've read so many books with animals, as you can already tell. This is like kind of like it's more like Guardians and where the red roll grows, I think, is kind of where this kind of takes place. So we have animals, and I've never been able to read half their words. Well, Well, never out loud, but I barely had any trouble with them, so if I start having issues, you'll know why. I forgot to bring a drink this time. Poop. Okay. Their only true rivals being the owls and the eagles. The eagles! The eagles! Okay. The inhabitants of the land were of simple nature. The dogs roamed freely, the cats ignored them and dozed off in the sun, the rodents were underground, and the reptiles were alone in the deserts. That was the basic gist of the lives of ground dwellers. Simple, uneventful, and boring. The inhabitants of the underground were a different sort altogether. The tunnels were run by the rats. They were rarely spoken of, and lacked the attention of sky dwellers. Ramza flew to the east on a mission to reach his lover. She was named Kyra. They'd met at a young age, but migration was difficult in recent times, and often the males could not make it back every year. This was one of those years. The hawks were out in throngs, and the journey would not be a safe one, so the elders forbade it. Ramsel left anyways. Half the journey was now behind him. With no hassle along the way, he had evaded every pack of dangerous animals, up until now. When a shriek echoed throughout the sky, the kite stopped to look behind him. That's where he saw it, the swarm of hawks. A tornado of angry, bloodthirsty see, I'm doing it because I don't know how I said it the first time. Looking for their next meal. Ramso blinked. Boop! Yes, I don't swear. Got on my level. He turned around and darted in the opposite direction. As fast as his wings could take him, he prayed no pockets of opposing wind would get in his way. He held his neck tightly and swooped towards the ground, hoping to pick up some speed on the fall. Only a few feet from the ground, he pulled up, gliding parallel to the earthy floor. Okay, I think that's part 1 of chapter 1, actually. Rats, vile, terrible creatures, disgusting, and yet they ruled the Under-Earth. The king rat, Anyong. Oh, goodness me. Anyong, I think it is, was like a god to the rest of the rodents. Moles, voles, and rabbits praised him and held him to the highest regard. No, I think I might be able to dramatically read this one. If I don't get distracted, I should be fine. Except the mice. The mice were as slaves and were meant to purely for labor. Oh my. Were purely for labor as sacrificial duties. Today was the day of sacrifice, when the rodents would give up mice in their worship for Pro-Cry-O-Shiha. The king called out to his people, "Let all those old enough for witness sacrifice." Hold on. Let all those old enough to witness sacrifice gather around. The time has come. Hundreds of creatures poured out of their huts, doors slamming shut. Some younger rodents darting on ahead so they could get there first. Rabbits bounded over to the side of the great pit and stared inside. Philemon. Oh goodness, I know how to say this one. He's told me about these characters, so I should know how to at least read their names. The characters' names. I don't think I will ever be able to pronounce anyone else's. Philemon. It's not Philemon. It's Philemon, I think. Philemon. Yeah, Philemon. Philemon stepped out and carefully closed his door behind him, leaving his brother and sister alone inside. I keep spitting on this dang computer. He walked silently toward the pit, with a crowd of screaming, cheering vermin yelled for the king's first sacrifice. Philemon tried to keep his eyes closed, and his ears focused on other things. His long ears twisted in various directions, listening for any other sound to keep his mind away from the tragedy to ensure. "My great people," the king called out. Everyone went silent.
Today is the day of sacrifice. Our 5 volunteers have been lined up inside the cage. Our first gracious volunteer is Marmin from the Raccoon House. This kind mouse was volunteered by his owners for our first event. Their message they'd like to be read with the sacrifice of, sacrifice.
A mouse was hauled out from the cage and thrown to the ground, screaming and sobbing. The guards who carried him out grabbed him around his shoulders and dragged him up to the stand. They clasped the shackles around his arms and legs and lifted him up, hanging him by his arms, chains on a hook. He continued screaming for help while the crowd cheered away. Oh goodness, I lost my spot as I moved the thing. No. And lifted him up, hanging him by his... Oh wait. He continued screaming for help while the crowd cheered away, absently.
Marmin is a good worker, the king read. We are certain that his service in the house of the great goddess will not go unnoticed within his death. His sacrifice will bring our family joy.
The king set the note aside and pulled a dagger from out of his robe. He climbed the stairs to the stand, wiping off his feet before stepping close to Marmin. He ran the dagger like a scalpel down Marmin's chest. Blood leaked out of the slice, and Marmin... Sorry, I can't read those well. Marmin wrenched out in pain. Onyong sliced down the mouse's spine and the sides of each leg. And oh, goodness me. Oh. I'm in pain. Hold on, give me a sec. Hey. And the cries were louder and more pained. A guard grabbed a thick cloth and shoved it into Marmin's mouth. Marmin's mouse. Mouth? Marmin's mouse. Rowing, you're gonna have to fix that one because I think that's supposed to be mouth. Shoved into Marmin's mouse. Isn't he the mouse? Okay. As far back as possible, the mouse could only silently sob now. The 2 guards pulled out their knives and began separating hide from his muscles and tissues. Minutes passed before the king and his guards removed the hide in its entirety. Opened his eyes, tears soaking his cheeks. He watched them as they walked away with his skin. Blood flowed down his body onto the platform that he hung above. The slices were only deep enough for base wounds, but not enough to make the mouse bleed out, so as to carefully remove the hide, which the guards were now hanging on a rack made out of roots and chains over a large vat, fire going under it. The liquid in the vat bubbled and fizzed violently. The king stood back at his stand and called out,
Soak it. Soak it. Soak it. Soak it. Soak it. Soak it.
Soak it. Oh, I'm sorry, I ruined it. The guard turned to Crink, lowering Marmin's coat into the vat of boiling liquid, the fur sizzling on contact, so the whole of it was removed from his chains and dragged over limply to the vat, and wrapped the now emerged coat back onto his body. The liquid poison seeped into his cuts and gashes. He cried out in pain. Philemon put his head down and held his ears, trying to block out the sounds. The crowd was silent, eagerly waiting for the next phase. Guards opened the cage to bring forth the next mouse, while others hung the screaming Marmin on a post, torches at the ready below him, steady to light him up.
Now, Marmin. Now, Marmin. Yon Yong called, behave while in brook. Now Marmon, Young Unyoung called, behave while in Cryo Shah's house.
Flames rolled up the servant mouse's body, engulfing him entirely. The crowd cheered out. His screams echoed throughout the cavern and pleased the ears of the viewers, all except one. Philemon backed away through the crowd, eyes closed. Once he got to the back of the group, he made a mad dash for the nearest hole to hide within. He had to think, but he couldn't do anything too rash. Do anything too rash? Too rash. Okay.
Our next wonderful volunteer.
I need to do that really.
Our next wonderful volunteer is Perrin. This mouse was brought to us by the Corinth family.
The king cleared his throat and read.
Perrin is a humble slave. He knows his place, but he can use a good whip or two if he's ever wrong. Spill out his blood for our goddess, and let our family thrive under Procurator's everlasting reign.
I'm gonna mess it up a lot because I can't look at how to pronounce it all the time. One of these if I do a series on this, I will definitely make sure I get that down so I can be in a character and stick with it. The two guards hung Perrin up on the chain and readied their knives, once again running them down his chest first and his sides, never cutting too deep, never piercing too far. They removed his skin and he cried out. Philemon was at his home. He had written a letter to his family, stating he could never return after what he was about to do. He pulled a knife from his drawer and his staff from beside his bed. He carefully locked the door to his home and made his way down to the pit. The rabbit crouched out of the view of the crowd, guards and the king surveying the layout of the pit. He couldn't save the ones in the cage. The ones in the cage, there wouldn't be time. Perrin may die if he stays skinless, but there may be a chance. He got up from his crutch, in a view of the crowd, guards and the king surveying the layout of the pit. He couldn't see the ones in the cage. Okay. He got up from his crouch and readied his long legs. Philemon steadied his staff in his one hand and his knife in the other, and it was now or never. End of 2. I don't know how long this is gonna be. My throat's getting dry. I'm getting tired, so I want to try and get through as much of this as I can. The leaky ripped into her prey and devoured it. Every morsel was precious to her, and soon she needed to hunt for her family as well. Blood dripped down her chin as she buried the remains of the mouse she had just finished off. She licked her lips before quietly grooming her tail. Matted fur was the least of her problems, but it felt nice to relieve some pressure. A new scent was upwind. She lowered her tail and stood up, opening her mouth and letting the smell flow in. She slipped her orange paws into her metal gloves and extended her claws. She ducked into a bush, waiting for the scent to pass. She heard a twig snap behind her, and when she turned around, it was too late. Another cat had jumped her. Thylake tried to shake it off, but it had a hold on her back. She stood up on her hind legs and backed into a patch of brambles, falling in onto it. Then chewed her wheezing from the pressure and letting go. She got up and turned around, ready to slash her metal claws. Oh no, it's a girl voice. I don't want to do a girl voice again. I really don't. It's like a little too, like, almost midnight kind of. I can't, like, do it. My throat's not gonna love this at all. Sister, stop. It's only me. The large she-cat quickly dropped her gloves and went to comfort her frightened little sister. Micro, you. Don't you ever do that. I could have killed you. You never pounce on me when I'm hunting. The small feline cowered and tears dropped down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to have some fun. Well, well, Leela looked around. There was another animal around here. It could have been hostile. I was being defensive. Its scent is gone now. It could be anywhere. Come, let's grab a few mice before heading back. Okay, you know what? Maybe I'm gonna do good because I'm not going to the high part, but at least it's gonna at least sound feminine enough, I hope. The sisters sat outside the shades of a tree, silently eating their prey. That is, until Thank smelled it again, the same scent as before. She looked around, trying to catch where it was from. Then she saw it in the distance, a dog. Yay! Oh, hey, we made it. Actually, yeah, at the end of that. Okay, so that's as far as I'm allowed to read. But I do have like access to a lot of the other chapters, so I'm probably going to be able to do this. Now, I don't know if if there's any links to it, so whenever I upload this, I don't know when. I'm still waiting. Currently in this video, I'm still waiting for assets for a previous video, so I don't know when. Yes, I have all the hardware, so I'm going to do a series on this, most likely, because I have access to all of it, and any future ones, because it's not complete currently, as the point of this recording. It's not all there. Chapter 5 isn't made up yet. The current point of this recording, last edit was made an hour ago, according to this, so that's it. I'm going to bed, and this is Agent N107, signing off.